folks, but next we need to build and modify the UI, okay? So the employee, whether you want to call them user, staff, or whatever, can maintain their own profile information, the things that they should have access to be able to fix up themselves, right? So a few steps in a nutshell here. We're going to add an employee account controller and view so the employee can edit their own profile. We're going to use a cookie. This is kind of a bonus thing we're going to do to hold a friendly version of the name, right? So we can display that instead of that simple email address in different places, right? And then we need to get into the actual identity system, right? And modify pages there to work with our new security procedure, right? So that's basically what we're going to do. So, so we'll add this new employee account controller, and let me just move this off to the side, right? Okay. So I'm going to add a controller here. Okay, I'm going to call it, it'll be I'll just start again with an empty controller. So I'm going to call it employee account controller. And once more, we'll inherit from cognizant controller as well, right? All right, so for an authorized attribute, basically, we're just going to have a requirement to be logged in. As long as they're authorized, they can come here, because this is where authenticated user who's logged in can come and maintain their own information. So in terms of a summary property to throw on top here, I'm just going to put a little bit of one here. Specialized controller just used to allow an authenticated user to maintain their own account details, right? Obviously, only the ones that they're entitled to do. Now, in terms of the constructor and so on, what do we need to inject here? Very, very little, actually, right? All we need is our medical office context, and that's it. Okay, so we'll get that in place. And in terms of the index action, all we're going to do here is redirect to details. We aren't even going to use the actual any kind of an index here. So, you know, it's good to have an index action just to redirect us where we actually want to be. So we're actually going to come to details. All right, so what is the details going to look like? Okay, maybe I'll add some comments here as well, just because I put it in my copy-paste file. Okay, so basically details, well, this is going to get a version of that employee view model, right, that allows us to show just the properties that the user themselves should be able to maintain. Okay, so we're going to go to our employees, including subscriptions, where the email matches, right? Because remember, that's how we relate the two systems together. Right now, they're logged in. So user.identity.name will have that unique identifier for them in the identity system, the email, and we'll match that to the email of the employee, right? So this is a way we're filtering to only give them access to their own information. We build our employee view model object, the view model we created earlier, just assigning the values over. Again, mapping generator helps me. But here's a new one, okay? The number of push subscriptions. Remember we added that? It's a simple integer. So we can come in here to the subscriptions and count how many there are, right? Because we included them here. So that'll just show how many subscriptions they have. Okay, we just check that there it isn't null, and then we return view for the employee, right? Okay, all right, so we might as well add the detail view. So I'll right click, we'll add view. Again, I'm just going to go empty here. We'll get it in place. Okay, so feel free if you want to scaffold it based on employee again and just take out what you don't need. It's entirely up to you. So it's based on my employee view model. Okay, I have my view heading at the top, account for. Okay, I can use that summary property there just fine, right? Okay, I just have my little message up top to show any errors that I want to. And we have display names for first, last name, phone number, and the number of push subscriptions. So that's all the data we're going to actually show, but we'll have an edit link, right? It's where they can go to the actual edit action, which we'll create in a moment, to edit their account details. Okay, so let's go back to the controller now. All right, and we're just going to paste in here. Well, I might as well just throw the rest in. There's not that much more because we only have the two basic actions, right? Oh, now it's complaining out employee because it exists in two namespaces. So make sure you choose the model's namespace here. Okay, that should fix that up. All right, so let's come back. So first of all, of course, we'll have our get for edit, right? So here we come in and we get the employee. Now notice we don't even pass a parameter, right? Why not? Because we're identifying the parameter by the username of the person who's logged in, right? So again, our where clause is based on that relationship between our common, unique, required property in the two systems, the email, right? And then we select our employee view model object, getting all the data, including our count of subscriptions, and that just gets us ready to show our edit view. Now, when we post back to edit, we have the ID here, okay, of the actual employee to update. So we can go and get them from the employees, and that gives us our actual employee object itself, right? And then we're going to use try update model, okay? So we can only allow some properties to be updated. Now, here we're in full control of the only thing the user can change is the first name, the last name, and the phone number. Nothing else, right? So we're fully in control of that because of the way that we've set up our try update model. So then we'll try to update the employee, save changes, okay? And if that goes well, then we're going to update that cookie. Remember I mentioned that we're going to actually have a cookie to show a nice user-friendly version of the identification of who's logged in, right? So that's something we can do quite quickly here. Employee to update.summary. So we pass that into our little method that we'll show you down below in a moment to create that in the cookie. And then we can just go back to our details, right? Because that's really our main page for this particular controller is the details itself, right? Not doing concurrency, not much to put in there. DB update exception, hey, something went wrong. There's nothing that really should go wrong, so I don't really have anything else to say there. All right. Okay, so here's our update username cookie. It's simply a call to our cookie helper to set the cookie. Okay, I'm just calling the cookie username, and we're just saving basically that summary information, the full name of the user, right? For 960. Okay, that's of course the actual expired time. It's an integer. And that's it. Employee exists is just that normal Boolean that we always have. So that's good. So we need the other view though, right? We have our details view already. So let's get our edit view in place. We'll add view here. Again, I'll choose empty, but if you want to, feel free to use the model and just take out all the code you don't need. There's really not much more to this one as well, right? Okay, again, I'm using my view heading. It's based on an employee view model, okay? Edit account for user identity.name, right? And then I just have my temp data, my message up there to show in red if I actually have feedback to give. All right, so validation is in place. We have our input type is hidden for both the ID, but notice as well, we're storing the email, okay, user identity.name. They can't change it. Only the admin can ever change it, right? So that's how we're setting that up there. The only thing they can change is first name, last name, and phone number, right? And then basically we can go back to account details if they're done, and away they go. All right. So that's good. We have that in place. Now, it's not tied in anywhere, right? We aren't going to, put something in the menu for them to go do that, not in our normal menu on our layout. What we're going to do is we're going to now burrow into the actual identity system, the identity views and pages, right? So we're going to need to scaffold them. Now, let me just check here. I think we already have some of it scaffolded. So let me just check user identity, pages, account. Yeah, actually, earlier on, I went overboard. We actually, I think, pulled pretty much everything into here, right? I don't really need it all, but now that I have it, okay, I'll be able to modify. The only two pages I really need to change at this point in time is account manage nav and account login, right? Also, we are going to make a change in our login partial. That's one we already had already. So maybe I'll start there. So way down here in views, shared, okay, we've looked at it before. Here's our login partial view. That's what shows in the upper right corner of our bar across the top there, where we usually have our register and login links, right? So what we want to do here is we want to, first of all, inject the HTTP context accessor, because we want to show that nice, friendly version of the name, right? And to do that, we need to access cookies, and to access cookies, we need to have our HTTP context, right? So right up here where we inject everything else, I'm going to also throw in, we're going to inject Microsoft ASP.NET Core HTTP, the interface for the HTTP context accessor, and away we go. Okay, so now that that's there, I can come down here. If we're signed in, okay, you know what, I could try to modify the code, but you know me, I'll definitely mess it up. So let me just replace it down to the else, right? Feel free to take time to compare. You can see what's different, but really what we've done is I've come in here to the context. I'm going to go and check for a cookie named username, right? And if it's there, then I'll get the username, sorry, if it's not, I'll get the username, and that will be our username. So it'll just be the email address if I don't have it, right? Okay, so then I can show the username, and then I'm going to have a little menu here, a little drop-down menu underneath, right? In the drop-down menu, we'll have the normal, okay, manage, right? Some change their security settings. Okay, I'll have a little divider, and then the usual employee account, manage account, and our logout, right? So that's mostly what was there already. We've just added that new feature in the menu system. Now the else, okay, we're going to get rid of the register link, right? No one's going to register themselves. This is an internal use only application. So people don't need to be able to register on it. That's not something that we're going to even allow them to do. Okay. All right. So let's get back now to the actual identity system. So in here, our login, okay, we're going to use the login page, right? I'm going to start in the code behind for login. Now you see we already have some things that we're injecting from dependency injection, our sign-in manager and our logger, but I'm going to add two more. I actually want to be able to access our production DB context, our medical office context, right? And along with that, I want to be able to directly work with our user manager as well. Okay, so we'll have to modify the actual constructor here a little bit to work with the new objects we want to inject with dependency injection here. So there we go, right? Same two we already had, but also the user manager and our medical office context. Okay, so let's come down here. Of course, this is a Razor page, so it's set up a little differently. The code behind actually kind of works like a miniature version of a controller as well. So what I'm looking for in here is, see, it has its own sort of input model and things like that. On get async, right? Along with everything else, here's where we clear an existing external cookies if there are, but I want to also clear our own cookie, the one we've added to keep that user-friendly version of the unique identifier for the user. In other words, their username, that cookie we added earlier, right? So we're going to make sure we clear the cookie as they log in, right? So if there's somebody else logged in earlier, we don't want the wrong name showing up. Okay, now in on-post async, right? We're going to come down to the if or is model valid, okay? And then if results succeeded. So if they've successfully signed in, all right, that's good. So they've signed in, but what else do we want to do here? Well, we have access to the actual medical office context, right? So we're going to do a link query, go to employees, okay, using the relationship in the email between the two systems and get the actual employee, right, who's just successfully logged in. So now we have access to all the data about the employee. So now we can call our cookie helper and again set the username, right, using the summary of the user, and that's what we'll be able to display on the screen. Now, here's where I just chose something, right? Remember, we want to, well, forgive the term, nag the user, okay? If they haven't finished filling out their profile information yet, right? We're going to nag them by actually redirecting them to the employee count edit, right? And our temp data is please enter the phone number, right? So we're going to nag them to complete that. That's the only thing really left over, most likely in their profile, if they didn't do the phone number, right? So you could check everything, but I think this is probably enough. The point is we can redirect them to complete the profile. Okay. Now, down in the else branch at the bottom, right? We want to do a few extra things in here. What we're concerned about is what if they aren't in the system or are inactive, right? Well, you know, we don't want them to be able to actually do anything in here. So what we're going to do is we're going to add some extra code here. We're still going to have this, before we return page, this will be in the else branch at the end. Okay, we're going to add this model error invalid login and temp. That's still going to happen, but it's going to happen as part of a logical structure. Okay, again, we have access to the employee, so we're going to get that. Now, if it's null, then, hey, they aren't in the system, right? All right, so they aren't there. So error, account for, that email has not been created by the admin. And that's the model error we're going to add to the model state, so that can be displayed on the page. Okay, now, they're there, but what if they aren't active? Then we'll give a different message. Account for login is not active. And then finally, we'll just say invalid login attempt, right? That just handles all the different situations of why something might have gone wrong, why we did not or were not able to successfully log in, right? Okay, all right. So on the actual page itself, we have to do a little bit of work here, right? The link for forgot password, let's come down here, right? We don't really want to be able to register, and we don't want to resend email confirmations because that's not something we're doing anyway. So there we go. I'm just going to take those out, or you can comment them out, whichever you prefer, right? Then down here, this whole div, okay, for logging in from another service, well, that's clearly not applicable in our case. So I could delete it, or if I want to, I could just comment out that whole entire div. Okay. All right. So right now, the default identity account manage offers a spot to change the email address, but we don't want them to change their email address. Only the admin can do that, right? So we have to come up here to manage, and we have to come down to manage nav. This one right here, right? Now, this is kind of a shortcut I'm taking here, right? But basically, this link that allows them to get to where they can change their email address, I want to comment this line out, right? This whole line, I'm going to comment out. Now, technically, we should make here, what if they bypass this link and try to get in there in a, what's the word I'm looking for? Without being authorized to even go here. Well, you know, best practice we should go into the related pages and make sure the functionality is disabled. But for now, I'm going to be content with this. We'll just run it, and we're going to see the effect of all those changes we've made. Okay, the most obvious thing you see right away is there's no longer a register link, right? So I'll log in as admin. I think I deleted the database. Ah, you see what happened? We've been nagged. We haven't got the phone number in place. Oh, you know, I can bypass this for now, but every time I log in, it's going to direct me to there until I finally edit my account details, Notice I'm in the employee account controller on the details page. So here I'll finally put in my phone number, 905. There we go. Save it. And then now it's filled in. Now notice I don't have any push subscriptions. Don't worry about that. We will be doing that in the next learning moment. We're going to be learning how to add push subscriptions and be able to send out push notifications and so on and so forth, right? So that's good. Notice I now have my full name shown up here, right? That's stored in my cookie. I can come down to change security settings. I can look at my profile. I can put in a phone number here. Now that's separate from my phone. That's the one for two-factor authentication, right? Not my personal phone number necessarily. I can change my password. I can set up all this. I can clear my personal data and so on if I wanted to. If you want, you can take out some of these other things. That's entirely up to you, right? If I go to manage account, I'm right back here to the employee account controller, and away we go. Or of course I can log out, right? But now this is in here. Of course, because I'm an admin, I can come down to maintain employees and do everything we looked at in this controller. But now we've harmonized what the user can do in terms of the identity system is all contained in here, right? What they can do if they're an admin in terms of maintaining employees. So that basically wraps up this whole learning moment, right? We're at the stage now we can, as an administrator, manage everything about the employee. We can make them inactive, and then they can no longer log in, as we've seen, right? But now they themselves can be responsible for managing their own personal information and even get nagged if they haven't completed whatever it is we want to specify in here. So that finishes our demo. I hope you find this useful.